NBC Connecticut News starts now.
Breaking news as we come onto the air tonight. Police are surrounding a Plainville home right now. This is a live look at the scene where you can see police tape is up, what we're learning. Plus,
it's a huge night for Connecticut basketball fans. I'm in Washington, D.C. as the UConn men playing the Sweet 16 right now, plus the UConn women moving on to the Elite 8 in Texas. And we're following breaking news out of the WNBA and what it could mean for its future in Connecticut.
And Husky Nation back here at home is hyped. We are live in stores where fans are glued to the TV watching the UConn men fight for a spot in the Elite 8. But we begin with that news out of the WNBA that is breaking tonight. Thanks so much for joining us here for the news at 11. I'm Keisha Grant. The Connecticut Sun are moving to Houston, Texas. That's according to a source close to the agreement. NBC Connecticut lead sports anchor Gabrielle Lucevero is joining us now live to break it all down. Gabby, first things first, what can you tell us about the deal and how did we even get here?
Yeah, Keisha, the Associated Press, they're reporting the deal is for $300 million, and it is to the owner of the Houston Rockets. But let's go back to May. This is where everything kind of started for the sale of the Sun. We're talking about we started hearing about the Mohegan Tribe exploring their options to sell the team. But basically, they're just going, what's the value of our team now? We bought it in 2003 for $10 million. The WNBA has skyrocketed in its growth, so it only makes business sense to ask what's it worth now. Then you go to the almost deal in Boston. That was for $325 million plus $100 million towards a practice facility from the Celtics minority owner Steve Pagliuca. This is where the WNBA's will came into play, and the league made it clear that there wasn't going to be a team going to Boston nor to Hartford as Connecticut started to kind of get their own bid together, trying to match that $325 and $100 million. But WNBA said if there's going to be another team, if there's going to be a sale, it's going to Houston.
Well, Gabby, you said that the Mohegan Tribe was weighing its options. We're talking about a lot of money on the line. Did the tribe have to sell?
The short answer is no, they didn't have to sell, but if they didn't sell, they'd have to invest. The league has grown at an incredible pace over the last few years. That's thanks to players like Caitlin Clark, Paige Becker. So the investment in running a successful WNBA franchise is a whole lot more than when the Mohegan Tribe signed up for this again now 24 years ago. So what they could do, they really had two options. They could either invest in this team, build a new practice facility, try to make the small market of Uncasville, Connecticut attractive to players who are up against Chicago, Vegas, New York. So they could invest in that, or they could look and say, who wants to? Where can we bring this? They did, though. They were trying to find a way to keep it in New England.
Begs the question, Gabby, why Houston? Why not New England? Point blank, why not us?
Absolutely. So it really does come down to what the WNBA wanted. And we reported, right, the Associated Press is saying that it's going to the Houston Rockets owner. The ties between NBA ownership and the WNBA, it was just the Mohegan Tribe and now only the Seattle Storm and their ownership group that don't have ties to the NBA. So there was trying to get those ties. Yes, we can look at Boston and say there's an NBA tie there, but there was a sale of the Celtics and that wasn't the current ownership group either. So ultimately there's the NBA tie. But then the WNBA said, hey, we had an expansion bid. Boston, Hartford, you didn't put those bids in. Houston did. They were next in line. Well, Boston and Hartford, why would they get in line? They weren't trying to establish another team that would compete with the Sun, just find a way to make it thrive in New England. Because right now, the WNBA absolutely had outgrown Uncasville, Connecticut. It didn't necessarily have to outgrow New England, Keisha.
Well, Gabrielle Lucevero, we do appreciate your insight, your analysis. You've been following this since it was just a rumor. Now here it is. Into fruition today, the Connecticut Sun leaving Connecticut. Thank you, Gabby. Houston has had a WNBA team before, but it disbanded in 2008. They were one of the original franchises, and now they're getting another team. NBC Connecticut's Matt Satilli has made the trip to Fort Worth, Texas to cover the UConn women. And when this broke today about the Connecticut Sun, he spoke with fans about the move.
There was a lot of excitement from fans here inside Dickies Arena in Fort Worth, Texas, watching women's basketball take center stage. The feeling that I got talking to people about the Connecticut Sun relocating about 4 hours south of here to Houston is they're excited for Texas to have a second team, but it didn't have to come at the expense of Connecticut.
Basketball here in Texas for women has become a huge ordeal, and so this is just a new testament.
I love this for Houston. I hate this for Connecticut. I wish they would have just expanded to create a team in Houston.
Why, Dorothy? Why is there that sadness about Connecticut?
Man, do you know the Connecticut fan base? These are beautiful people who love this team, who now won't have an option.
Especially Paige Beckers, like her coming from Connecticut, having such a great record there, and now her not being able to play there again with this move, it's heartbreaking, but I'm excited for Texas to get another team.
And despite that excitement, others wondering, is Houston the best option?
The sports fans, all the sports fans in the Northeast are fantastic, and I know there's a lot of support for women's sports. Boston needs to have a team.
There's such a gap now, all the way from New York. You have to skip Connecticut now and go all the way down to DC. I would have loved for them again to create it in Houston instead of taking it from Connecticut.
The Houston Comets won the first 4 WNBA titles from 1997 to 2000. Fans I spoke with also excited about the possibility of a new rivalry between Houston and the Paige Beckers-led Dallas Wings. Reporting in Fort Worth, Texas, Matt Satilli, NBC Connecticut News.
Matt, thank you. Of course, Connecticut Sun fans also taking to, well, what else? Social media to share their opinions and feelings about the team leaving at the end of the year. NBC Connecticut's Stephen Pappas went through some of those comments, and he's here with more. Stephen, what are people saying tonight?
Yeah, Keisha, it's always just fun to peruse social media for the comments, and the Sun fans, they made their voices heard today following the news. Now, this one right here is from Richard saying, way to go, Connecticut, Whalers fan here. Same old song and dance. And I gotta say, these are two very different situations, though they do have some similarities when it comes to kind of how they develop. Now, the Whalers did have some the Rangers and the Bruins to deal with when it comes to attendance, some established teams already. The Sun didn't necessarily have any real established teams in that region that would take attendance away. Now, facility upgrades, though, those were a common falling out point for both the Sun and the Hartford Whalers. Now, let's take a look at this one. It says, yikes, Bridgeport Islanders moving to Canada. Connecticut Sun moving to Houston, again, sort of keeping along that hockey theme. It was, again, this was the attendance for the Bridgeport Islanders, not really great draws. The Connecticut Sun have done better when it comes to drawing. The Islanders about 4,000 over the last 2 seasons. The Sun have been a little bit better. They've actually doubled that with around 8,000. And then this last one here, I was going to read this one. This makes perfect sense. The CT leaders letting a women's pro basketball team leave the basketball capital of the world for Houston, Texas. Our political leaders are absolutely clueless about what is important for our state. Now, Governor Ned Lamont is reacting to that move tonight, saying, in part, quote, that the Connecticut Sun inspired fans, elevated women's sports, and represented our state with pride. We're deeply grateful for everything that they've brought to our communities, and we look forward to cheering them on for one more season. He went on to say it's important to not oversimplify the decisions made for the team's future, which he calls complex. He also says, quote, Connecticut will be investing in strong communities and a strong future for sports and entertainment, and we welcome anyone who wants to join that work. Keisha, I know that we've been following this all day. Some of that same sentiment that was felt online, I know we've heard it throughout the newsroom today. But just, you know, it's been said by Gabby, it's been said by Matt. It's a sad day in Connecticut.
Well, it certainly is, because, Stephen, even though we knew that there was a possibility this could happen, it still hits like a ton of bricks for fans here in our state.
Yeah, exactly. It didn't necessarily soften the blow.
Absolutely. Stephen Pappas, thank you. So Connecticut Sun may be moving on, but let's put it into perspective here for you. Let's remember they're still here for another year. So join NBC Connecticut for Women Take Center Court to celebrate the team's final year here, which kicks off on May 8th. We will be bringing you exclusive access with weekly segments, including when the Sun make the trip up from Mohegan Sun to play at People's Bank Arena in Hartford. That very first game in May is against the LA Sparks. Then on July 2nd, they'll be back in the capital to take on former Husky Paige Beckers and the Dallas Wings, as Matt Satilli told us. And the game's returning to TD Garden in Boston to play the LA Sparks again. The team will be there August 18th. Now to the other big basketball news we are following that's happening right now. The UConn men fighting to stay alive in the NCAA tournament. The late game started about an hour ago, and so far, UConn's leading the way, up 35 over 27, but there's still a lot of game left. So let's go live to Stores, where UConn fans are staying up late to see if the men can make it to the Elite Eight. Jane Chaco joining us there live. We are hopeful, Jane.
Hey, Keisha, yeah, these kids have no problem staying up late. We're at Husky's Restaurant and Bar, and you can take a peek inside through the window here. This place is packed full of what you could argue the biggest UConn fans, at least from Stores. They're here cheering on their team all the way from home. We checked in with some fans, and they say they're confident the men will secure a win tonight following the women's team, and you can't help but get sucked into all this UConn madness as everyone's keeping their eyes glued to the screen, cheering for every basket.
Every game is a challenge, but we overcome every time. Like, we have vets on the team. Caravan's going to carry. Reed is going to carry. They're going to show up tonight. I know they've been getting ready. They're watching The Woman on Monday, taking some notes, okay, because they ate.
Hurley and March is like the best that you can wish for, so I don't see why you wouldn't be rooting for them and be very confident in them. Hurley and March is going all the way.
A lot of love for the men and women here, and these students hope they will just be lucky enough to watch maybe both teams go all the way. That's the latest live here in Stores. Jane Chaco, NBC Connecticut News. Keisha.
Jane, we've been there before. Thank you. As for the UConn women, well, they had a lot of success today. They are moving on to the Elite Eight. They ended up defeating the North Carolina Tar Heels by 21 points. Huge win. Stephen Pappas is back with all the highlights coming up a little later in sports. Let's talk a little weather now, because you're going to need to get ready for a temperature roller coaster. This is what we're talking about. We're going from lows this weekend of 25 to highs next week of 73. Let's get over to meteorologist Steve Glazier with the Storm Tracker details. Steve, big temperature swing.
Yes, and it begins this weekend. We have cold air that's coming in now. We only have a high in the 30s tomorrow, and typically we have highs in the low 50s this time of the year. So right on par on Sunday, but then the warm-up ensues next week, 60s to 70s before the temperatures drop off again abruptly toward the tail end of next week. That's March into April here in Connecticut. 31 degrees in New London. Those temps are between the mid-20s and mid-30s at the moment. We are clear and smooth sailing, but we've got a chilly night on tap tonight. Check out the town closest to yours, about 25 to 30. I'll be back in moments to talk a little bit more about the weekend and sun expectations. Back to you, Keisha.
Steve, thank you. Now to breaking news we're following out of Plainville, where we have been watching a police presence grow outside a home on Milford Street. You're taking a live look at that neighborhood. This neighborhood is just a few blocks from Plainville High School, if you're familiar with this area. Police have taped off a home. You can see there, if you take a close look, that there is a broken window there in front. We did reach out to police for more information, but we're still waiting to hear back. We're going to stay on top of this story, stay on top of this breaking news there out of Plainville, and bring you updates on air, online, as well as on the NBC Connecticut app. A community meeting in Hartford gets heated. How people are reacting after the mayor fired a police officer who shot an armed man who was struggling with his mental health. Plus, remembering Dr. Henry Lee, a man who pioneered forensic science around the globe from right here in Connecticut and was a huge part of cases like the O.J. Simpson trial. We'll have more on his passing. And we're watching an important vote right now from Congress that is happening tonight. We're going to take you live to the House floor to see how lawmakers are leaning on a bill that could end the partial government shutdown.